Sakshi, we will wait for 2 to 3 minutes more. Meanwhile, in your WhatsApp groups, class WhatsApp groups, kindly ask people to join. Okay, students, we will wait for some more minutes. By 5:10, I guess, if no one else joins, then we can start the session. Okay, I guess we can start then. Can you hear? Am I audible? Just in the chat box, if you can say yes or no, and also say whether my screen is visible or not. If any one of you can write a yes in the chat box, yes. Okay. Okay. So Devanjan, both my screen is visible as well as am I audible? I guess. Okay. Anyways, let us start then. Okay. So previously, in the previous classes, we have studied the basics of Python, right? We have studied the basics of strings. We have studied the basics of yes. Okay. So we studied the basics of strings. We have studied the basics of lists. Also, we have studied the basics of dictionaries and all these kind of things. Also, during studying the topics, we have come across for loops. We have come across uh, not for loops, but the concept of loops. Also, we have come across the concept of conditions, right? So we have used if else, or if then else, or if, these kind of statements during the previous classes. So what we will do today, we will study uh, not the basics, but we will dive deeper into what is if then else, and what is a for loop, and what is a while loop. Okay, so let us start then. So generally, whenever we are talking about conditions, so generally Python or any other programming language, for that matter, supports logical operations from mathematics. Okay. Now, what can be the logical operations? It can be equal to, not equal to, less than equal to, greater than equal to, and so on. Okay. Now, obviously, whenever we are using Python, for example, so obviously we can understand that if I see the first point, we can see that yes, we can have equal to. So whenever we will have equal to, we can see that we write it as a double equal to b. Now, what does this mean? It means that if I want to compare two variables a and b, whether they're equal or not. Okay. So in that case, what we will do, we will just write double equal to, right? And it is very much it is dissimilar to a single equal to. Why? Because whenever we are using a single equal to, we actually do what? We actually whenever we want to initialize a variable or declare a variable, or whenever we want that this value should be stored in a variable, then we use a single equal to. But otherwise, whenever we are using logical operations, or whenever we are comparing between two variables, whether they are equal or not, in that scenario we will use what? Double equal to. Okay. Similarly, we have not equals to. So obviously, not, which means the exclamation mark means not, and if I write exclamation mark and equal to, it means what? Not equal to. So again, we can compare that whether two variables are not equal or not. Okay. Again, we have less than equal to. So if I write a less than sign b, so again we are comparing a and b, whether they're less than, whether a is less than b or not. Okay. Similarly, we can have a less than equal to, which means if I want to say that the value of a is 2 and the value of b is 2, so a can be less than equal to, right? So either it is less or it is equal to b. So again, we can do that. Similarly, as compared to less than and less than equal to, we can have what? uh, Greater than as well as greater than equal to, right? So all these kind of logical operations from mathematics are supported in what? Python. Okay. Now, how do we do this? And obviously, whenever we want to see these logical operations, we can obviously these conditions can be used in several ways, and most commonly it is used in what? If statements and loops. Okay. Now, how do we use it in if statements and how do we use it in loops? We will see in the later half of the slide. Okay. So if I just move forward, so again, if I come to the if statement, we can see that the if statement is actually written in using what? Using a if keyword. Okay. Now, obviously, whenever we have a for loop, we use a for keyword. Whenever we have a while loop, we have the while keyword. Similarly, whenever we have a if statement, we will have the if keyword. Okay. Now, again, if you see this example, it is just a is equal to 33. So which means again we are seeing that we are actually using what? A single equal to, which means we are storing the value of 33 in the variable a, right? So again we are seeing that we have declared a variable a and the value in a is what? 33. And what we are doing is we have declared a value variable b, and the value of that variable, which means we are storing what? 200 value in the variable b, right? Now, what we are doing, we are just comparing whether the value of b is greater than a or not. So, in that scenario, what we will do? We will write if b greater than a, right? We will use a colon. Why we will use a colon? Because whenever we have a if statement or whenever we have a for statement or a while statement, obviously it will have a scope, right? And obviously whenever we want to define that scope, what we will do, we will use nothing but a colon, right? And after we use a colon, we will press the enter, right, enter button. And again, when I come to the next line, what I will do, I will just shift the next line by to the right by 4 spaces or by 6 spaces, depending upon the id, right? So obviously we need to write indent the statements of the scope. Okay. Now obviously whenever, if this condition is satisfied, which means if for example b is greater than a, so what we will do, we will come inside the scope, and inside the scope what will happen, whatever statement is there inside the scope, right, that statement will be executed. So what statement is there inside the scope? It is nothing but we are printing that yes, b is greater than a, right? So again, very quickly, if I just write command cmd, okay, and I write Python. So obviously we are invoking Python, and obviously whenever we press enter, the interactive Python shell will come up. Okay. And if we just as a demo, we write this. So again, we can write a is equal to what, 33, and we can write b is equal to 200. And what we will do, we will write if b is greater than a. So obviously we will have a colon. Why? Because we will define a scope, right? And after the colon, we will press a enter, right? And what I will do, I will just write indent the next line by 4 spaces. So if I write indent 1, 2, 3, and 4, what we will do, we will write print b is greater than a. Okay. So if I just press enter like this, so again you can see that it is printing b is greater than a. Okay. Okay. So this was a very basic example. Let us move forward and we will understand it better. So again, in the next point, it is written that what the above code block was actually doing. So again, we have seen that. Okay. So indentation. Now, what is indentation? We have discussed this earlier as well. So Python relies on what? Indentation, which means nothing but white space at the beginning of a line. So again, you can see we are giving 4 spaces, means what? We are actually giving 4 white spaces before continuing writing the line. Okay. So again, so Python relies on indentation, which is nothing but white spaces at the beginning of a line to define scope in a code. Okay. Other programming languages often use curly brackets for this purpose. Now, again, if you remember in C or in Java or in C++, in the case of Python, we are giving a colon, right? And we are right indenting the lines of the scope. But in the case of C, C++, or Java, what we actually did, we just, whenever we wanted to define a scope, we just gave a opening curly bracket. After the opening curly bracket, we used to write certain lines, which means that those were the statements that will be inside the scope. And after we have written those lines, what we used to do, we just ended the scope using a closing curly bracket. Okay. So again, in the case of C, C++, Java, we used to do these kind of things. But whenever we come to Python, we just rely on a colon, we press enter, and we just have indentation, which means we indent the statements of the scope to the right side by either 4 spaces or by either 6 spaces. Okay. Okay. uh, okay. Again, suppose we were writing the code and we wrote a is equal to 33, b equal to 200, and we've written what, a if b is greater than a, we give a colon, and after the colon, if I write the line but I don't give 4 white spaces at the beginning of the line, then obviously we will get a error. Okay. So obviously white space is necessary, or indentation is necessary after the colon. After the colon, if I go to the next line, indentation is necessary. Okay. Now, so obviously, if I have a if statement, so obviously I will have what, another elif statement. Now, what is elif? Elif is just the short form of else and if, right? So which means if the first if function or if the first condition is not working, then we can go to another function, right? So if the first condition is not working, so what else can we do? So we will go to the next function and we write it using what, else if, or elif in short. Okay. Now, the elif keyword in Python is the Python's way of saying that if the previous condition were not true, then try this condition. Okay. So again, if I see this example, if I just go to the command prompt and write this example, so again you can see that a is equal to what, 33, B is equal to 33, right? So for the first condition, what I will give is I will write if B is greater than A. B is greater than A, right? If it is, then again we will go inside the scope. We will give four white spaces, and we will print what, that B is greater than A, like this. Okay. Now, if this condition is not satisfying, then what should we do? Then what else? Then what do we do? We will write a else and we will write a if. But in Python, what do? We will write this both together in a short form, and we will call it what? We will call it a elif, right? Like this. Okay. So what's the next condition? Next condition is if A is equal to B. If this is true, then again we will come inside the scope. So obviously, whenever we define a scope, we will do what? We will press four spaces, and we will print what, that A is A is equal to B in this case. Okay. And now if I press enter, you can see that it is printing A is equal to B. Okay. So I hope you have understood what's the function of a if statement and what's the function of a elif statement. Now, obviously, you know this, but again, you should understand the Pythonic way of doing the things. Okay. So again, in the next point, obviously, it is written. What is written? The meaning of this code block. Okay. Now, obviously, we've discussed that. Okay. Moving forward, obviously, we will have another thing, then that is called as else. Now, what's the else? Let us understand. Now, what does the else statement say? Else statement says, or the else keyword catches anything which isn't caught by the preceding conditions. Okay. So it may happen that whenever we're writing this program, so if the first condition does not work, we will go to the second condition. If the second condition also does not work, what we will do? Then we will have to go to a third condition, which should be saying that, okay, if the first two conditions are not working, then okay, no matter, no worries, come to me. I will execute the statements that I have within my scope. Okay. So that's the only function of the else statement, right? Now, again, if I see this example, it will be much more clearer to you. So again, if I just press the up arrow and we just write it like this. So the first condition is what? That if B is greater than A, then what we will do? We will just print that B is greater than A. Okay, if this is not working, what we will do? We will go to the second condition. So what's the second condition? If A is equal to B, and if this is true, what's the scope? The scope is that print, we will print A is equal to B, right? Okay. And what we can do? We can write a else statement, that okay, if the first two conditions are not satisfying, what we can do? We will again give a scope like this, and we will print what, that, for example, A is greater than B. Okay. Now again, this example that I have written will print actually A is equal to B. Why? Because I forgot to change the values of A and B, right? But again, you can understand what I'm doing, right? Suppose, as in the example given in the PPT, if the value of A was 200, right? Then first and foremost, you would have come to the first condition and would have checked whether B is greater than A. It is not, so I will not go inside the scope. Okay. So if this is not true, if the if condition is not true, I will go to the elif condition. What's the elif condition? Is A equal to B? So it is not true. And again, if the second condition is also not true, what I will do? I will go to the else statement, and whatever is there in the else statement, in the scope of the else statement, I will print that, right? So again, it would have printed A is greater than B if the value of A was 200. But again, we did not change the values of A and B. We kept it at 33 and 33. So obviously, the second condition of the elif will be satisfied, and whatever is there in the scope of elif will be printed. So again, if I press enter, let us see what happens. So again, it will print what? A is equal to B. So I hope I'm clear till this. Okay. Now, also, it is not true that whenever we have a else statement, we will obviously have to write it after the elif statement. So we can have a else statement, and that is without the elif statement. Okay. So again, if I just see the proper example, so I will write A is equal to 200, B is equal to 33, and I will write if B is greater than A, it is not. So what I will do? I will just write the scope of this. Anyways, the scope will not be executed. So what's the scope? That B is greater than a, right? And if it is not satisfied, what we can do, instead of writing a elif, instead of writing another condition, what we can do, we can just write a else statement, which means if the first condition is not satisfied, we will just go to the else statement and we will execute whatever is there in the scope of the else statement, right? So what I can write here, I can write just the opposite thing. So I can write print a is greater than b, like this. Okay, so again, if I just execute this, we can see that it is executing the scope of the else statement. Okay. Okay, so again, I guess I'm clear till this. Okay, now moving forward. Now, obviously, the beauty of Python, or the most important thing in Python, is that it has the ability to write a much larger of codes in C, C++, and Java into very short codes, which means the lines of code in a Python program is often less than the lines of code of an actual C, C++, or a Java program. Okay. Now, again, to lay emphasis on that, we can obviously write a shorthand if else, as well as a shorthand if, elif, and else statements. Okay, now let us understand how. Okay, now what I have done is, you can see that I have given two pointers here. First is the shorthand if, and we have a different pointer for the shorthand if else, right? Now, why have I kept it separate? Because the syntax for a shorthand if is slightly different, and the syntax for a shorthand if when combined with the else is a bit different. Okay, so obviously the first one is there is no else here, but in the next one, what we have seen, we can see that there is a else here. Okay, so again, the syntaxes are a bit different, so again we will see that. Okay, let us go to the first one. See, if I have only a if statement, right, and we do not have the else statement, so what we can do, we can just write, so for example, a is for example 200, b is for example 33, right? And what I can write, I can write if a greater than b, I will give a colon. So up to this it is normal, but in the previous example we have seen that after the colon we can give a enter, right? Someone has switched, unmuted himself. Showman, are you trying to say something? Showman. Showman has switched on his camera as well as his. Showman, do you want to say something?
No, sir.
Okay.
Mistaken.
Okay. 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 Anyways, so again, you can see that up to this it is the normal syntax. That is, I'm writing if a is greater than b, we will write a colon. And in the previous example, we have seen that after the colon, we will press a enter. We will just write shift the statements by 4 spaces, right? But again, I need not do that. Okay. So which means instead of pressing the enter, what I can do is I can just write the scope, the statement of the scope, which means I can write print a is greater than b, like this. Okay, and again, if I press enter, you can see that it is printing. Okay, so which means if I do not have a else statement, if I have only a if statement, so this is how we can write the same thing that we have seen previously in shorthand, which means in lesser lines of code. Okay, but again, if I have a else statement clubbed with the if statement, then the syntax is a bit different, and let us see how. Okay, now again, let us see an example. So if I write a is equal to 2 and b is equal to 330, right? So what I will do, I will first write the condition. Okay, so what's the condition? The condition is if a is greater than b, colon, or we will not write a colon. Okay, so for the first condition is if a is greater than b, right? So obviously we can see that it is not. Okay, so if it is not, which means, so for the if there will be a statement, as well as there will be a else, and for the else also we will have a statement, right? Now for the if statement, which means if the if statement, or if the if condition is satisfied, the statement for the if condition will be just written before the if statement. Okay, so which means I will write what, print if a is greater, I will write a is greater, like this. Okay, just a second. Like this. Okay, right? And after this, so for the condition if A is greater than B, what's the statement? We return the statement, and after that we will write a else. So obviously after this we will write a else. Okay, and after the else we will write the statement of the else scope. Okay, so here I will write what? Print B is greater, like this. Okay, so understood the syntax till now? If you have any questions, ask me. So to repeat myself, what we have done, we have first written the if condition, right? And the statement, if the if condition is satisfied. So how do we write the statement? We will just write the statement before the if condition, okay? And after the if condition, we will just write else, and after the else, we will write the condition for the else statement or the else condition. Okay. So again, if I just press enter, you can see that it is printing V is greater. Okay. Now again, if I have multiple else statements, so let us see what we can do. Okay, so what we will write, so suppose I have A is equal to 330 and B is equal to 330. Okay, so obviously first and foremost I will have a if statement, so I can write if A is greater than B. If it is, then obviously the statement for that will be before if, so I will write print A is greater, right? After this we will write what? The else statement. Okay, now obviously if I have a else statement, so obviously we will have a if, right? So else if, elif. Okay, so again for that, so if I have a elif, so obviously we will write a else, we will write a if statement. So obviously if I write if A is equal to B, if this is true, so what will be the statement? I will write print equal, like this. Okay, and obviously if this is not satisfied, we will again have a else statement. Okay, we will press a space and we will write the statement that will be prevalent for the else statement. So it will be B, like this, or in small letters, like this. Okay, so this is the example of how do we write a shorthand if, elif and else statement. Okay, so again if I press enter on this, we are actually printing what? Equal. So that is what we have printed. Okay, any problems in this? If you have any, I will just wait for 10 seconds and you can ask. Okay, if not, then we can continue further. Okay, next. Now we come to two very important statements in if and else. First one is what? The and statement. Second one is called the or statement, or the and keyword or the or keyword. Okay. Now, if I just see the examples, it will be much more clearer to us. Now, whenever why do we use the and operator? Now, obviously, and operator means that suppose we have two conditions, right? And we want that if both the conditions are satisfied, then only we will go into the scope, right? Also, we can want that if any one of the condition is satisfied, then we will go inside the scope, right? So if I want that both the conditions should be satisfied, then again we will use a and operator. But again, if I want that only one condition instead of uh, 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 among the two conditions is satisfied, then only we will go into the scope. Then we can use what? The or operator. Okay, so let us quickly see two examples. So if A is equal to 200 and B is equal to 33 and C is equal to, for example, 500, and if I write if A is greater than B, so obviously it is satisfied, and I want that C should also be greater than A. So if I want that both the conditions are satisfied, then only I will go inside the scope. In that scenario, I will use what? A and operator. Okay, so what I can write? I can write, I will give 4 spaces. I can write what? Print both conditions are true, like this. Okay, So again, you can see that both conditions are true. This will be printed. Why? Because both the conditions are actually satisfied, and then only went inside the statement that was inside the scope. Okay. But again, if I just use the same example, so A is equal to 200, B is equal to 33, and C is equal to 500. So what I can do, I can write if A is greater than B or A is greater than C. So again, you can see that the first condition, that A is greater than B, will be satisfied. But again, the next condition, that is A is greater than C, will not be satisfied. But still, we have used a OR operator. So which means if either of the two conditions are satisfied, we will go inside the scope. Okay. So what's inside the scope? We will write print that at least one condition satisfied. Okay. So again, if I press enter, you can see that we are going inside the scope of the if statement. Okay. So I hope it is clear till this. Okay. Let us move further. Now, obviously, we can write a nested if statement. Now, what's a nested if? Obviously, if we have if statements inside if statements, so again, we call it what? A nested if statement. Okay. So again, let us very quickly see this example. So if I write x equal to 41, right? So what I will do, I will give the first condition. I can write if x is greater than 10. So yes, it is greater than 10. So what I will do, I will give a colon. I will define the scope. What's the scope? It is above 10, for example. Okay. Again, inside the scope, what I can do, I can write another if statement. So what I can write if x is greater than 20 as well. So if it is, so again, this is a if. So again, I will have to define another scope. So again, I can write what? Print also above 20, right? And for this, if let's say we give a else statement, and for inside the else scope, we can write what? Print for example, not above 20. Okay. So if I just press this, you can see that we had two ifs, one inside the another, and obviously in this case both the if statements have been executed or has been satisfied, and the statements inside the scope were executed. Okay. Okay. Last but not the least, we have the pass statement. Obviously, if we have a pass statement, okay, let's see an example. So for example, if I have a is equal to 33 and b equal to 200, like this, and if I am writing that if b is greater than a, so yes, it is, sorry, so obviously the condition is satisfied. But it may happen that if the condition is satisfied, uh, we are in no mood to write a statement. It can happen that we do not want to write a statement, we just want to check whether the condition is satisfied, right? So if we do not write any statement, and if I just press a enter, you can see that we will have an error. Okay. So you may say that, okay sir, I guess you have pressed the enter, and after the pressing the enter you did not give four spaces. So again, for that matter, the error is coming. So again, let us check. So if I give the enter sign, and if I just press four spaces, and again if I press enter, so again you can see that there is an error. Okay. So in that scenario, what we can do, we can write something called as, so I will give a enter, I will give four spaces, and I can write something called as a pass. Okay. Now what's the function of a pass statement? The pass statement will just, it will check that yes, the condition is true. It will go inside the loop or go inside the scope. It will see a pass. Okay, so it means we don't have to do anything, we just pass the whole execution. Okay. So if I just write pass and if I press enter, you can see that the statement, the code is executing fine, there is no error. So what's the function of a pass statement? It means that whenever we encounter the pass statement, we will just do nothing, we will pass everything, and we will come outside the program. Okay. Okay, so I guess I'm clear till this. Okay. Let's move forward. So again, we have completed the if else statements. We will very quickly try and complete the while loop as well as the for loops by today. Okay. So again, with the while loop, what we can do is we can execute a set of statements as long as a condition is true. Okay. Now, what's the condition we should understand first? Now, obviously, whenever we are talking about a while loop, it will obviously contain a while keyword. Okay. Right. So let us see an example. If I write I is equal to 1, right? I press an enter, and let us write the while keyword. Okay. And again, as we discussed earlier, a condition or a logical operation can be used inside the if statements, while statements, as well as for statements, right? So again, we have seen in if statements that we can use the logical condition. Now we will see that in while statements also we can use the logical conditions. Okay. Now again, what we can write? We can write while I is less than 6. Okay. And obviously, since it's a condition, I will give a colon like this, and I will press a enter. I will give 4 white spaces like this, and I will define the scope. Okay. So what's the scope? Let us say we are wanting to print the value of I, right? And after this, we press an enter. And what do we write? We write I plus equal to 1. Okay. Okay. Let's understand what we did here. Okay. So initially, the value of I is equal to 1. Okay. Now, after the value of I is equal to 1, I will come inside the while condition. So what's the while condition? Whether the value of I is less than 6 or not. So obviously, if the value of I is 1, obviously it is less than 6. Okay. Oh, shit. Very sorry, guys. There was a power cut. Am I audible now? If you can kindly say yes in the chat box. Anyone, if you can say a yes. Yes. Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay. So whenever the value of I is equal to 1, and we are checking that whether the value of I is less than 6 or not, so obviously it is less than 6. So if it is less than 6, I will come inside the scope. What is the first statement in the scope? I will print the value of I. So what will I do? I will print the value of I is equal to 1. Okay. Now, after printing the value of I is equal to 1, what I will do? I will just increment the value of I by 1. Okay. So what is I plus equal to 1? We have seen this in the second class. So obviously, actually, we are just incrementing the value of I, and whatever is the value of after the increment, we will just store that value inside I once again. Okay. So which means the value of I now becomes 2. Okay. So if the value of I becomes 2, I will again go to the while condition. So now the value of my I is equal to 2. So I will again check if 2 is less than 6 or not. Okay. If it is, I will again print I. So obviously I will print what? 2. Okay. So after printing 2, I will again increment the value of I. So now it will become 3. Again, I will come to the while condition. Is 3 less than 6? Yes, it is. So what I will do, I will print 3. I will increment the value of I, it will become 4. I will come again to the while condition. The value of I is 4. Is 4 less than 6? Yes, it is. I will print the value of 4. I will increment the value of I to 5. I will again check, is 5 less than 6? Yes, it is, which means I will print the value of I, that is 5. I will increment the value of I, it will become what? 6. Okay. After it becomes 6, I will again come to the while condition. What's the while condition? Is I less than 6, which means is 6 less than 6? It is not. So if it is not, I will not go inside the scope, which means I will not print I will not increment the value of I. What I will do, I will just come outside the scope, and whatever is the next statement, I will execute that. So in this scenario, what's the next statement? Nothing. So which means we will just end the program. Okay. So which means if I just press enter in this, it will print what? The value of I from 1 to 5. So if I just press enter, you can see that it is printing from a 1 to 5. Okay. So I hope it is clear to everyone till now. Okay. Okay. There are two certain things that we need to remember. The first thing is that we should remember to increment the value of I after every iteration, or else the loop will continue forever. So obviously you are seeing that we are, after every iteration, we are just incrementing the value of I like this. Okay. If we do not do this, what will happen? The loop will continue forever, right? Okay. The next thing is The while loop requires a relevant variable to be ready. Okay, what's this relevant variable? So let's see an example. So in this example, we need to define an indexing variable I, which is has been set to 1. Now what's the indexing variable in this case? This I equal to 1 that we have set at the first statement is the indexing variable, right? So whenever we are defining a while loop, first and foremost we need to define the indexing variable, and we need to initialize the indexing variable with a certain value, right? If I'm initializing the indexing variable with a 0, I will continue from 0 till 5. If I'm initializing it at a 1, I will continue from 1 to 5 and so on, right? So obviously whenever we want to execute a while loop, first and foremost the first thing that we should do is we should declare the indexing variable, right? And what's the second important thing? We should remember to increment the value of I after every iteration. Okay, okay, these are the two important points. Okay, next thing is a break statement. Now what's the function of a break statement? Let us understand. Okay, so let us see this example. So again, if I write I equal to 1, I will write while I is less than 6. What I will do, I will first and foremost print the value of I. Okay, and after this I can write if I is equal to 3. So if I is equal to 3, what I can do, I will define the scope by giving 4 spaces. I will write break. Okay, and after this, after coming out of the if statement, I can write what? I plus equal to 1. Okay, now let us understand what is happening in this program. So obviously first and foremost the value of I is equal to 1. Okay, so I will come to the while condition. I will check is 1 less than 6. Yes it is. So what I will do, I will print the value of I that is equal to 1. Okay, now I will check is the value of I equal to 3. It is not, right? So I will just skip the scope of the if condition. I will come to the next statement, that is I plus equal to 1. So value of I will be equal to 2 now. Again I will go back, I will check is 2 less than 6. Yes it is. I will come inside the scope, I will print what? The value of 2. I will again check is I equal to 2. No. I equal to 3. No, it is not. So I will just skip the break statement. I will come outside the scope of the if. So what's the statement that is outside the scope of the if? It is I plus equal to 1. So which means the I value of I now becomes 3. Now I will check is 3 less than 6. Yes it is. So what I will do, I will print the value of I that is equal to 3. Now if I check if the value of I equal to 3, yes it is. So what I will do, I will break. Now what is the function of a break? Let us understand from the output of this example. So if I just press enter, you can see that I printed 3, right? Then I checked is 3 equal to 3? Yes it is. So what did I do? I wrote the break statement. Now what is the function of break statement? It will just stop everything and it will come out of the loop. So again, after encountering the break statement, the loop did not continue from 4 to 5, right? Whenever it encountered the break statement, it just stopped everything and it came out of the loop. Okay, I hope I'm clear till this. Okay, very quickly, similarly we can have a continue statement. Now what's the continue statement? Let us understand with an example. So initially suppose the value of I equal to 1 while I less than 6. What we will do, we will just increment the value of I by 1 first. Okay, and I will just a second. I will give it 4 spaces. I will write I plus equal to 1. Okay, and I will write if I equal to 3, what I will do, I will give a colon. What I will write, I will write a continue like this. Okay, and after the continue, what I will write, print the value of I like this. Okay, now let us understand what is happening inside this program. So first and foremost, the value of I is equal to 1. Okay, so I will check is I less than 6. Yes it is. So what I will do, I will just increment the value of I first. Okay, so the value of I becomes 2. I will check is I equal to 3. No, it is not. So I will just print I, right? So which means I will print 2. Okay, okay, again I will go inside the while. So the value of I is what? 2. Is 2 less than 6? Yes it is. So what I will do, I will just increment the value of I. It becomes 3, right? Is I equal to 3? Yes it is. which means we will continue. Okay. Okay, let us continue, and then again let us print the value of I. So let us understand whether the value of I is printed or not. Okay, so if I just press enter, just see what happens. So whenever the value of I became 3, we just press continue, right? Now what is continue? Whenever we encounter a continue, we will just go to the while condition. We will not execute anything that is after the continue statement. Okay, so obviously the continue statement was printing the value of 3, but in the output we can see that we have not printed the value of 3. After we have encountered the continue statement, we just went back to the while condition. So in the while condition, what happened? The value of I was 3. Is 3 less than 6? Yes, it is. What did we do? We just increment the value of I by 1. So the value of I become 4, right? After it became 4, I will again check whether it is equal to 3. It is not. So what I will do, I will print I and so on. So again, you can see after 2, we continued when the value of I was 3. And after that, we printed 4, 5, and 6. So again, you can understand what happened actually. Okay. Now, okay. In the while loop, we can also write the else statements. Okay. Now let us understand with an example. So the value of I suppose is equal to 1. Okay. I will write while I less than 6. Okay. If it is true, what I will do, I will print the value of I first, like this. Okay. And what I will do, I will just increment the value of I by 1. Okay. And what we can do, we can write a else statement. Okay. And inside the else statement, we can write what? We can write print I is no longer less than 6, like this. Okay. So what is happening inside the program? Let's understand. So initially the value of I is equal to 1. Okay. So if the value of I is less than 6, so obviously it is less than 6, I will print the value of I, which means I will print 1. I will increment the value of I, which means now it will become what? 2. Again, I will go back. I will check, is 2 less than 6? Yes, it is. I will again print the value of 2. It will become 3 and so on, right? So which means till the value of I is equal to 5, I will just keep on printing from 1 to 5. Whenever I'm printing 5, if I increment the value of I by 1, it becomes a 6, right? So again I will go back to the while condition. I will check, is 6 less than 6? It is not. So obviously what I will do, I will just not go inside the scope and I will continue outside the scope, right? What is outside the scope? Outside the scope, it is written a else statement. Now, what is the function of this else statement? If you remember, what's the function of else statement? Else statement means that if the above conditions are not satisfied, what else can we do? Do nothing. Come to the else statement. Whatever is there, whatever statement is there inside the scope of the else statement, we will just execute that statement. Okay. So obviously, whenever the value of I is equal to 6, this condition is not satisfied. So obviously, the first condition is not satisfied. So what else I can do? I can go to the else statement, and what we can write. So whenever we are going to the else statement, we will just print what? That I is no longer less than 6. So we will have to give an inverted comma here, otherwise it will not print. Okay. So let us understand what will be the output. The output will be from 1 to 5, and lastly it will print that I is no longer less than 6. Okay. Let us press enter and see. So again we can see that it is 1 to 5, and we can see that I is no longer less than 6. Okay. So I hope I'm clear till this. Okay. Now with this we come to the end of the while loop. Okay, it's already 5:53. What I will do is I will very quickly try and finish the first 2 slides of the for loop, and then we can continue in the next class. Just a second. Okay. Now, why do we use a for loop? We'll use a for loop for iterating over a sequence. What's a sequence? It can be a list, a tuple, a dictionary, a set, or a string, right? Now, again, we have seen that how we can iterate over lists and strings and dictionaries using a Python for loop. Okay. Okay. Now, this is less like the for keyword in other programming languages. Okay. And works more like an iterator method as found in other object-oriented programming languages. Now, what is this? What's the meaning of the second statement? We will understand it better whenever we are doing the object-oriented part of Python. But for now, let us leave this and let us continue to the third statement. Now, what's the third statement? So with the for loop, we can execute a set of statements once for each item in a list tuple, set, etc. If I look at this example, again, I hope you will remember this example. So if I have a list called as fruits, and inside this list, suppose I have three elements. What are the elements? The first element, for example, is apple, right? The second element, for example, is banana, like this, and the third element, suppose, is cherry, like this. Okay. So what I can do, I can write for I in fruits, right? What I can do, I can write print I. Now what is happening in this case? So in this case, we can see that I is the iterator, and what will I do? I will go to every element of the list, right? And what it will do, it will just take every element and it will print that element to the output. Okay. So if I just print write enter on this, so again you can see that first the iterator I will go to apple, it will print apple. It will go to banana, it will print banana, and then it will go to cherry, it will print cherry. Okay. Now again, if you come to the fourth point in the PPT, you can see that the for loop does not require an indexing variable to set beforehand. Now again, if you remember the example of the while loop, so obviously in the while loop, what did we do? Initially we had to declare, or we have to initialize a iterator variable, right? So obviously we after before writing the while condition, we were actually initializing what? The value of I is equal to 1 or value of I equal to 0 and so on, right? But whenever we are writing the for loop, we do not have to do the same beforehand. We can just write the same inside the for loop only. Okay. Now if I go to the next slide, so again, using the for loop, what we can do, we can loop through strings. So again, we have seen this example, but still, for the sake of understanding, let us execute it once more. So if I write for x in the string banana, like this, so obviously what will happen? X is the iterator in this case, and what it will do, it will just iterate over every character of the string banana. Okay. So in this example, if I just print the value of x like this, so again, you can see that we are printing every character one at a time. Okay. Clear till this? Okay. So we will just complete the Python program in the Python for loop in the next class, and then we will start with Python functions. Okay. So I hope the class for today is clear to everyone. If you have any issues, just tell me. Just a second. I will stop the share first. Okay, so just a second, in the chat box, what I will do is I will just give the attendance Google form link, and I will also give the classroom code. I can see that many of you have not joined the classroom as of yet. So kindly join that because again, everything I share in the Google Classroom. So again, please join that. Okay, so in the chat box, you have the Google form link. Also, I will paste the Google Classroom link as well. So if you have not joined the Google Classroom as of yet, kindly join it. All the materials, which means the PPTs that we have seen in the first three classes and for today, will be posted there, as well as the live lecture videos again will be posted in that classroom. Okay. Now again, if you do not have any problem further, you can leave and fill up the form. If you have any problems, you can stay back, ask me the questions. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.